The last day of the groups is up and running with Wild securing a spot in the playoffs. And now we shift our attention to the world champions G2 versus MNM Gaming. A lot to play for. My name's Ian. This is Fresh and the three-time himself, Fabian. Listen, I mentioned it there. World champions. We were there for it, right? He was there for it, of course. He was the coach at the time.
Yep.
I even had a player go down on his knees giving me the hammer. Do you see it?
I didn't know what you were going to say there. And then we switched gears and went across to Copenhagen, right? And there was a lot of anticipation, a lot of expectation that maybe you'd get back-to-back silverware here in the Siege ecosystem. Didn't happen. Then we moved on to G8.
Yep.
Humiliated. Didn't go great. I'm going to come to you in a moment, Fab, but first, Fresh. Could G2 potentially end up with even more egg on their face here?
Absolutely. I think, they got themselves into Group B, and it's not been a great storyline for G2 since, that time in Montreal, the 6th Invitational. When you look at it holistically like that, obviously they can get themselves out of this situation, but I talk about the expectations for G2 a lot, and when I called Copenhagen a failure, I got a little bit of pelters, but it was, they got top 8 in Copenhagen, but they had their eyes on winning it.
Yeah.
When they flopped to Gamers 8, and now the fact that they aren't first place, even in this group, will be a disappointment ultimately to the G2 organization. They do have an ability to get through to the deciders, still go to the major and smooth that all over. But there's a risk that they end up in the open qual playoffs, which again would be a catastrophic failure for this team.
Is there an argument that G2 enjoy the bumpy road to success?
I don't think anybody enjoys that. Everybody wants to go straight through. And the path that G2 have shown us so far is basically they've been relying on the individual ability that all of the players in G2 possess, because that's just the star power that G2's got. We need to see them start playing as a team now, because that's what they've been lacking. And they can't rely on just people dropping massive performances like Alamo did play day 1 and then Doki did against Heroic. You can't expect them to keep doing this. They need to start playing as a group, as a whole.
They've got the ability to do it, Fresh.
They've got the ability, like Fabian said, we've seen it individually.
Yeah.
We've seen Doki drop 23 kills. We've seen Alamo have that big first game. But then if you took that first game away, he would be a 0.7 rated player, right? So we know that G2 have this ability to perform as a team. That's when they're at their best. That's what's won them SI. But we haven't, to be honest, we haven't seen it. They've still got the opportunity, luckily, because they've got such good individually talented players. They've got the points. They've accumulated that. That's great. They've got the opportunity today to get through and show as a team performance.
Fab, can I call you Fab?
Call me whatever you want, baby.
Okay, baby. Well, the question I've got for you is this. You're obviously part of the camp. You're now, we're happy to have you on the desk. It's much better, in our opinion. We like having you here. But there's been some changes and some positive and some negative changes to come from them. What do you think is going on and what do you think is potentially going wrong with G2?
If we keep going on the same things that went wrong when I was there, it's a lot of individual mistakes and not really taking back the feedback that they're given, like we need to play as a team and we need to play as a group. I think that Romalio has brought a new coaching style. I was much more about the mental and the basics and trying to push them to play actually default way of playing together. And then however they played as a team, that was up to them. But I wanted them to individually play as a group, like to help each other and to play for each other and with each other. But I think Romalio has brought a lot of defense help for them. He's also brought a lot of small micro plays and adaptations to their opponents. So I think that there's a different sort of coaching style that they've got going on now. And I think that it might suit them better with this one than what I had. And it's just about them actually realizing that the basics needs to be there no matter what. Because if we look at a team like we just saw, Wild 7-0ing a team and completely dominating them, they did that out of basics. Imagine if them put the perceived fragging power of the G2 players onto those guys. They could be world champions again.
They'd win everything.
They'd win everything.
Well,
they dominate one more time.
I mean, there's another team that I know that you two are both very excited about, but they just can't necessarily put together the final pieces to make it all happen, and that is G2's opponents, MNM Gaming. Now, the Siege that they've been playing hasn't necessarily been the greatest. They lost to both the French teams in Wolves and BDS. They did beat Heroic, but like I said, they haven't looked great. Usus in particular has been a bit of a highlight. So I guess, Fabian, the players collectively need to step up as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're all playing actually quite decent Siege. I mean, Nello is having a bit of a rougher time in terms of numbers. But MNM as a team, they're just quite tricky. We've been praising them every playday and said they can be the next best team in the world. And then they just keep disappointing us and themselves because it's the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over. And I wonder how many times that over can come before they start to realize it. It seems like there's some sort of internal problem that they've got, though, because the staff in interviews, they say they know it.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the playday, next one, it's just the same thing, so all over one more time. So I don't know how they're gonna fix that. It's like the manpower advantage just needs to be there. Stop peaking. Care more about winning the round than care about the number you get on your scoreboard, because that's what I see as a massive issue. You should never be peaking in some of the situations where we're seeing them, and just the individual or the team play that they have, it's non-existent.
Fresh, we are going to get to maps in just a second, but first, just briefly, do you think they're focusing a little bit too much on 1v1s?
I think it's just such a deep-rooted issue, genuinely.
Yeah.
And, you know, they've got a few deep-rooted issues, and I think their attitude towards the issue is probably what's causing them not to fix the issue. Because they make a joke of it amongst the players, you know.
Yeah.
They know, oh, MNM, they lose XV1s. Oh, MNM, the defense matches. Oh, MNM, you know, don't get trades. And they need to be a top team. They need to improve these issues.
G2 versus MNM, where will it be played out? Let's take a look. And Fabian, we are going to Skyscraper.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that from MNM. They've been struggling so badly with their attacks. It's been awful to watch them play them. And I think that Skyscraper is one of those maps where you cannot do the one-on-ones that they have been doing. You cannot sneak around the map like they have been. So I need to see a completely different MNM turn up today. They just need to show some motivation to play it. This is a map that I know G2 loves. They absolutely love playing it. When I was there, it was our #1 seed.
Yep.
We just wanted to constantly go into Skyscraper. And now you're allowing that instead of a completely unknown Nighthaven. It puts question marks in my head because I don't see why. I think that because of the map, MNM is in for a really, really rough time.
I've got to add on to this as well. And, you know, I saw it being a Skyscraper because I didn't think MNM had the map pulled completely.
Yeah, that's no...
One thing that I will say, that attack and defense merchant that we talk, MNM love the defense. They're good on the defense, they're bad on the attack. 29% attack win rate over 17 rounds. That's 5 attacks in 17 rounds. That's not just one game where they've been bad at attacking that. It's a consistent issue. I could very well see G2 going 4, 5, 6-0 up on the defense here and then getting the job done. I really worry for MNM on this map. The other thing I worry for MNM about, just very quickly, is the fact that they struggle to beat G2 generally. Last time, I don't think they've beaten them in the last 18 months from what I could find in the head-to-head. You know, so certainly G2 have got that mental advantage. They've got that the fact that they've always beaten them in the head-to-head. And they've got a good map, their favourite map, and starting defence against a team who can't attack. Everything stacks, in my mind, for G2.
Yeah, and just the one-on-ones that MNM are allowing. You can allow one-on-ones against the best fraggers in the league. Like, this is the team with the highest amount of fragging power. Are you going to allow the one-on-ones here? I just don't see how MNM can win this.
Go on, Fresh.
I've got one small thing. G2 did lose the last time they played Skyscraper against Wolves. And that's the only thing I could find that might make me think, hey, MNM might have a chance because they've seen G2 Skyscraper this stage. But also,
it won't change this thing.
MNM only just beat Heroic on Skyscraper Playday 1. So, yeah, that's it.
Come on, give me one quick
If you're an
reason
MNM fan, that's the
why
thing
MNM could win this. I just want one other than...
They can't.
Okay, fine.
7-1,
Thank you very
7-2
much, Fab.
G2.
Appreciate that. All right, let's get into it. G2 versus MNM. I'm predicting an unpredictable affair. Let's get into it with Fluke and Hap.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moustache Mysteria. Oh no, it's Ian Chambers with a moustache. What a strikingly handsome man.
Is that Ian Chambers from the radio?
That's Ian Chambers. Right there. Zoom in, close up. 65% of you agree with Fabian, maybe not to his level of extreme belief of a 7-1, 7-2. Now, Fabian has been right about some things, but one of the things that I think we've seen from this G2 team this split is that they can go up very well in the first half of the game, and the second half gets a little bit falling away from them.
Yeah, it's weird how that keeps happening, right? It's like, I don't know what it is. I mean, we're not going to be talking about fatigue. It's just the best of one, right? Fatigue doesn't really get into play for these players. They're all used to be playing best of threes. So it's not that. It just might be that, you know, they start off well, they start on the preferred site, and then they just kind of get like left in the dark end, or they swap over to a site that requires that bit of a better team play rather than individual performances as
It doesn't even matter because
mentioned?
in the first map they started on defense versus BDS, went 5-1 up, fantastic control. In the second map it was only 4-2 on their half, but it was really controlable on their attack and things went a bit away from them. So they need to make sure they keep themselves a bit steady. And as Fresh said, their last showing on Skyscraper was a 4-7 loss against Wolves. But to be fair, Wolves are a terrifyingly good team at the minute. One of the other things, I think is a point obviously worth paying attention to is, well, the performances of G2. You have Virtue and Doki that have been outstanding throughout the split so far. They're both sort of flying away in the kills game, but the rest of the team, you know, Benja and Alamau especially, they've sort of had big moments, but we haven't quite had that same dominating effect. Whereas, well, when these teams have met before, I think it was on a cafe where it ended up as a 7-0 to G2's favor. I think it was Alamau and Benja went about plus 11 each over the series.
Cam Benja hasn't really been able to find his old self for this stage. I believe he was -6 in his KD so far. So
This is a strange start.
it is a strange start to go to the bedroom and the bathroom first. Don't often see that.
I think I've seen it maybe 3 times for the times that we've cast. I know Wild have a hold they've done a couple times on it, but it is a rare sight to sort of bring yourself in. We have Sprabuni statistics. This is the last deciders team. G2 wins 6 rounds. They're good. G2 don't win 6 rounds. MNM.
Then MNM is
They're
good.
good. So MNM need a full fat win here. G2, they can get themselves some tasty overtime points. But will they be able to?
Just any point. It's good for G2. Comes down to that 2 points of a lead right now, so finding one is going to be making sure that MNM is never able to overtake. And as they get started, well, I mean, they're closer than they might think because the side is on that basement. Oh, no, not basement, on the ground floor, near the bedroom and the bathroom. So there's direct windows in. Players are being spotted out. They will be well aware, but they just need to remove some of that utility. But Virtue and Alamau roaming on the opposite sides of the map. Actually, very heavy roam on the opposite side of the map. I'm not sure what's going on here, but there's only a single person currently on the site.
I mean,
if they rush this,
good
there's
luck,
no
Benja.
way they're holding this.
Good luck, Benja, is all I'll say. Uno isn't too far away, and, you know, MNM are taking their time. They're getting the feed above. There's some angles they can try and strike their way across here. Solisov wants to hold on to sort of the top of VIP, push themselves into Shrine, and cut anyone off that wants to rotate over towards the vertical. They're face-checking a lot here and hoping they can get the first step in on the gunfight. As I said, where Virtue and Doki have been exceptional, Solisov, Nathan, users have all generally been pulling positives. Tyrant as well. There's only one player on MNM that has come into this playdate with a negative KD, and that's Nello.
Now, MNM, of course, they know where the side is. They're just trying to cut off any rotates, I believe. Just make sure that the players that are out there on this side of the map will stay occupied and don't have an opportunity to rotate back. Again, if they would have gone for the site straight away, they might have been able to get the plan down before any G2 members were going to be able to respond to them. Rotations are coming through, utilities being taken care of, and MNM now slowly started to head towards this side, but yet everybody's still alive on the G2 side and slowly starting to creep back towards it as well.
It's almost a little sort of surprising and confusing. It's been played in the pace of their game. They're trying to make sure that they're not just throwing themselves into a trap here, because that is the guaranteed hold and take here. If you can spring a trap on a team, as we've seen before, then you can sort of define things. Watching the vertical, they know that the player's above them. Ben just paying attention towards the window itself. They're just trying to get that sort of thread of communication. A CC force have popped. Neither's found a victim. Tyrant's watching the rotate on one side. There's the player on the side killed. There's the catch on the rotation round. Alamau does get users, and you can see 2 blue bodies pushing their way across. Uno keeps things locked down here, but Nello's going for the plant right tucked in the corner by the bathroom. They have the vertical back in their favor. They have the double kill now. There's the drop across the front, and it's just Virtue left. And, well, he's trying his best to spray through. Too late to the party to stop the plant, and you know, this whole round has a little bit of a question mark on it.
Not just a question mark, just a very, 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 very big question mark for me. One person on the site.
One person on the site, you can, you know, this is one where I'm sort of, I would love to be next to Fabian and turn and take a head off and be like, what? Because
What the G2 doing?
what the G2 doing? Because they can do plays and they can do holds on this map. I mean, it's a gamble to go to that site. You're playing by a surprise game. They sort of doubled it down by having the full stretch across the opposite side. You could see MNM were cautious about it. It took them a long time to sort of go, okay, we feel confident enough to try and get this kit down without it being stopped mid-time. And they even lost the vertical control during that engagement. So all the time that it took, G2's plan, it might have worked, but you know, I think a lot of that hinged on it being the first round. A lot of it hinged on MNM being a bit cold and cautious. If they were a bit more warmed up and snappy, I think it would have still been an MNM one, but a much more deciding round.
I think it might have also just been confused, right? Because they've drone everything.
That's
you
what
see
I'm
four
saying.
people on the opposite side of the map. What?
Yeah,
what
you
are they
don't know,
planning?
you don't know what to expect. And when you're coming into a game fresh, you're a little bit more cold. You're a little bit more like, all right, you know, we don't want to get taken for a bit of a run and a ride here. And to be fair, a couple of trades they almost were, but the gamble I don't think quite worked out here for MNM. Alamau wants to gamble the first fight, and I talked about how they can be super strong in the opening half, and Alamau was that super strong player. His best performance so far for the team throughout this split was that opening defensive half against BDS on Oregon.
Yeah, they're gonna need more than the off that right now though, because again, very important matchup. All MNM need to do is make sure they close this in regulation and kick G2 down to last chance, well, basically open qualifiers. Try and make it through. Or last chance qualifiers, of course, depending on how points eventually stack up. Solotov, it's going to be taken down by Alamau. Was aware of what was happening. Instantly finds himself slightly back towards safety. As he heads towards house, Tyrandel ready to cut at the staircase now. If he was there a second earlier or 2 seconds earlier, would have been able to catch Alamau on the rotate.
Losing the gadgetry and almost losing Tyrant. Doki took a lot of damage in that sort of shake-up as well, but they have the build for defense to work behind. They have a lot of impact and explosives. 3 C4s and another couple of impacts as well. They've gone sort of full in on that long-range explosivity. Hold them off on the back end. There's a spray about. It'll just take a little connection here from Mozzie to get the head of Tyrant, and Ben just tucked super close. It looked like there was a rotate maybe coming around to the door. There it is. You'll see the support, but Alamau gets Tyrant from behind. Ben just ready to take this next fight. And what a shred of Nello. 5-2. Nafe at least gets one back, but a minute on and they still need to take any control. Great take from Nafe though.
Yeah, that's Benji going a bit aggressive there, hoping to find another kill to really swing the favor to the side of G2, but as he uses, now finds Uno as well. The round might still go towards MNM. Doki low on HP, Virtue's playing on the dragon statue. Now, that's very difficult to clear a player behind it. There's many tight angles they can hold. Instead, he will be falling back, still with a C4 in hand. Could always just still drop down below. Use that explosive later on if the plant's happening. So, as the fire now comes through, it's MNM that need to find an opening, something they can leverage just a little bit into an advantage. Also, the diffuser still drops, so kills are going to be the name of the game here.
Usus gets one more. Doki goes down. It's all down to Virtue at this point to try and hold out. He's pulled off 2 clutches throughout this split so far. Can he make one more for the road with only 11 seconds? He has that to work with slightly. Swings on, gets the down onto one player. The single 1 versus 1. Nate can't find it, and Virtue tacks another onto his tally. Keeps them balanced, but that was almost a meteoric pullback of that round from MNM.
That almost went back into their hands, indeed. A 2v1 in the end, but that diffuser not being in their pockets hurted them there. They couldn't really just, tuck in, go for a plant, hope for the best there. They needed to split up, divvy up their chances of finding that final player. Was Virtue unaware of the fact that the diffuser wasn't actually in their hand? Otherwise, I think he would have hit a bit more on that final engagement when he got the down on one of those players.
As we sort of alluded to before, this is similar to the stakes of the previous game. If a team gets a full fat win throughout this, they will find themselves moving on towards the decided playoffs, which puts them only about 2 games away from a lot of SI points and a guarantee of a fight at Atlanta, the major, Otherwise, even if they get into that situation, well, then their worst case is they'll go to the sort of last chance qualifiers. They don't have to play through the Open, which again is only about a game, maybe 2, and you guarantee yourselves 50 SI points. I believe is around 30 to 50 is the minimum, which is actually around what a low-level finish is at a major. So that is a thing that both these teams have a lot of keen eyes on, especially as they already have quite a good amount under their belt. They don't need too many more to get themselves cemented in that list and in that setup for SI next year.
No, that's it. As soon as you make it to one of these majors, you're basically almost set already for whatever is to come afterwards. It's just you kind of want to go to that major to really ensure yourselves of that qualification. And well, it's weird to think that maybe one of these teams will be missing out. It's that major, depending on how results will go, depending on how the rest of the qualifiers will go afterwards. As Nave's coming in with the Bravo drone. Clutch drone trying to steal some utility. Bulletproof cam will fall. It's going to provide some information around restaurant, which is actually quite important given that the site is going to be barbecue and kitchen. So you have the big open space right next to those two sites now completely covered off by information. As Zuna goes for a jump out, it's going to be a find. Yes, he does find Solotov.
Twice in a row, Solotov's been the first body removed in 3 rounds. He hasn't been able to get anything at the back of the engagement. At least they caught the player there. Nave, great reaction to sort of get down with the lockout. You know there's only really one way out of that. Even if they wanted to try and impact and run around, you are still stuck in a box. They didn't waste the time on it, though. They did try and force themselves in. Oops, there's Alamau. And there is Tyrant Virtue. Off the back of his previous heroics. Gets another removal, gets rid of Tyrant. It puts a lot of pressure on the remaining players here because, well, MNM is still trying to formulate the take, and G2 are so happy to put the pressure onto them as they're trying to just get the first level of their setup put together.
That's what they need to do. They need to make MNM very uncomfortable in their initial approach here. And again, the diffuser is dropped on the opposite side of the map. There's no one from MNM near to recover it as they're trying to take over Karaoke. They're trying to take over that bottom floor, find any G2 players that could be useful to them. As Nave is getting pings out, they're going to be able to find a kill to Alamau, so that at least the back stairs cleared out and gives them an opportunity to move on as a player right behind Virtue there had no ID.
Well, once again, MNM have taken what was a sort of start of a losing hand and done quite well on the flop, and maybe the river might lead them to a little bit more. A winning pot here. Doki's holding off onto one angle. Benja as well. 2 big players we talked about before, and only one of them left. Benja has been a huge factor, was maybe the big factor in their taking of SI, but yeah, just late to the party. 9 seconds. MNM still have to plant. Nafe has been on a tear for the team throughout these rounds, and that's a second attack for MNM locked in.
G2 really need to be cleaning things up here because they find these advantages and then they just lose them. They get a bit too greedy. They spot a player on one side of the map, just start moving towards it, forget about their flanks and get hit by those. MNM is playing and manipulating that map very well that way. But this might be costing G2 a lot more rounds than they are willing to give up. And thus, as we head to Karaoke Tea, well, they have to tidy it up a little bit. They got to make sure that they are just more prepared for where these MNM players are coming from. A bit of a lack of information really was there in that last round. Otherwise, Virtue wouldn't have been taken down by a player that was hiding inside of basically Karaoke the entire round.
Talking of Karaoke, often a first pick site where we finally find the rotate round 2 for G2's hold. Let's see if they can get a little bit more normalcy, because although MNM have found themselves, 2 rounds up, they almost had all 3. It came down to a do or die sort of moment off the back of doing or dying. A lot of that is built on those last round sort of pressure plays. Nafe and Users, both of them especially, have been such a driving force, where between the pair of them popping off to this level, it's almost like how we've seen G2 recently in a couple of games. We'll have a couple of players massively popping off and not quite the rest of the squad hitting the mark. It only gets you so far, but so far it's kept MNM in this fight.
Well, as we move on to the next, G2. Again, to tidy it up. MNM, they've been showing their clutch potential, bringing back these rounds by just staying calm, not overextending, not overreacting, more importantly. As they are getting prepared now, a lot of information from that one RC Retiro is coming through. Benja going down in the meantime as well. It's going to be a trade to come through as Doki will find Nello, so that's the hard breach removed. I'm not quite sure if they had the breach. He's trying to go for the second fight now. Very will provide himself some extra cover as he will find a kill to uses. A second person tries to challenge him though, but it's enough. He's falling back now.
Well, I was going to say they have an extra hard breach when you said they don't have any. Now they don't have any. Jesus, the second follow-up there. The ace is gone as well. The breach was open to an angle, but you've still got a lot to take care of it, and Solotov not being in this position means that they could have rotated a bit freer back. It was a little bit of a miss sort of timing there, which could have netted them a bit of a guarantee, but they've been in sticky situations before, and they've lost one of that sort of two-power duo. You still have Tyrant and Solotov. Solotov finding his first, finally, throughout this on the 4th round. The player that you definitely want to start steaming into these engagements. The kit, once again, cold and off to a side as they're going to get themselves picked up and rotated round to the back. But there is a lot of this site that G2 can sort of set themselves up, hold and wait in. This will be the trickiest for MNM to try and steal back.
Not impossible as Nave coming around the corner slowly. He's getting some pings. He has some information, but there's a player in his close left as Virtue will find Solotov. The drop came through. He knows that's going to be safe now and tries to go for a swing. He's taking small amounts of damage. That gives away his position. Alamar goes for the swing. That leaves only up Tyrant now in a 1v4 situation to try and make sure that G2's not getting a second round, but it looks like they just might. With 30 seconds on that clock, this is going to be very unlikely. He gets taken down by Doki. A huge round from him. A jump out, using the keeper barrier to find a second heartbeat right after as well. And then able to fall back to the site rather than take that third fight in a row.
Trade them rounds. Back and forth. You are kidding me, Josh. They know each other very well, these two teams. I mean, you have to remember, if we're going to highlight G2's sort of round winning moment at SI, or round winning, or their performance, I think it was Doki actually shouted out Nafe on the big screen in the final in all chat. They're very familiar with each other. It's tricky. I mean, it's also tricky because this is truly a group of death. All of these teams, you've got Wolves playing the best that they've ever played. You have BDS and Shaiko especially playing some of the best Siege he's played. And then you have these two teams as well that have both put in great performances. It's rocky that one of these teams won't make it, really.
10 seconds to go.
But that's it, right? Like, one of these two is going to have to go through a very, very, very long route.
Yep.
Try and still get themselves to another spot.
Wolves did do it last time. Wolves were the team that were able to get themselves all the way routed round, and you know, it's not impossible, but it adds so much extra stress on to sort of keep your performance level, and I guess there's no better stress testing than playing against the other best.
Okay. 2 more rounds in this half before we swap, so G2 is looking to at least find another round, but preferably 2. MNM, of course, will be the same. Wanting to lock this off at least a 3-3 to give themselves the best opportunity on the next half. Openings are being made. MNM slowly starting to approach, but still with the drones in. 2 people on the rappel. Now, we've seen a run happen in that last round. I don't think it will instantly come back again now.
It's not an easy map to get run-outs and jump-outs on.
Yeah,
It's
you'd have to go through the pantry door below.
It's a complicated space with a lot of tight turnings and a lot of overhangs and balconies. It's not your sort of throw yourself out of a window a la bank. You have to be very ready for it. There is ways of doing it. Obviously, there is hop-out windows, but ever since it had some changes to it, it's been even more sort of nightmarish.
Solotov very much aware of someone could potentially be around near him. He's underneath the site. This quickly clearing it out. Finds Doki, but doesn't quite get the kill. Doki now continues rotating around. Impacts are being used. Uno loses his life as Doki will finally respond though onto Solotov. So at least it's a 1-for-1 trade, but Doki took so much damage. And he's not going to be able to rotate back up to the side because Tyrant's out there. He was waiting.
It was such a good response there from G2, though. As soon as those bullets went to Doki, they didn't know. We saw 3 G2 players try to get themselves into that situation. They lost out because of a great reaction from Solotov to sort of aim up and realize the fight's going to come from above first. We heard the impacts go. Doki got the trade out the back of it, but even with that great reaction, they weren't quite able to save the Scotsman who was stuck underneath. 45 seconds. MNM, they have to try and drive their way past Shrine and Dragon here. Virtue's going to hold it out to the best of his ability. He's been able to do bits on this site before, but he's now the first point of pressure.
Benja goes down. Good opportunity here for MNM to capitalize on all those early deaths and early downs as there's 20 seconds left. Clutchable, yes, very much, but that plant does need to go down at some point. The breach next to Alamau opened up. He's just trying to hide for his life here behind the keeper barrier to see if he can maybe clutch this out.
I mean, it's the perfect time. Pops up, gets one, gets dropped right back round, but Virtue, again, in a situation where he might be able to pull this out of absolutely nowhere. It's much trickier because their cover just hits the hits towards the solid that stops. Now the post plant. Well, he's been able to do little bites out of players. It'll take a scrape to get the end users. Who is, unfortunately for him, tucked in a trickier situation. Tyrant has the lockdown. We have MNM with their 3rd attacking round.
That's looking very strong and solid for MNM here. Good attacks coming through. And they get one more opportunity to truly, solidify themselves as the winner of this first half. They've been looking better than G2 overall. They've been quick to respond. They've been able to cut up the rotations that G2 have attempted back up the staircases. As we're back towards Kitchen and Barbecue.
Attackers need to locate and defuse.
MNM again will have to take control of the top floor, but last time they did that very successfully.
I mean, there it was. As I said, Solotov sort of popped up, swung against Uno. The impact came down. They were doing their best to let's try and get this kill. And then Doki can sort of move into that play space. We'll have that advantage. It was a good idea, but MNM just a little bit more prepped for it and had that first extra step. It's the sort of thing that a team who's been able to watch a team play this map can bring into the second showing of it. Now, themselves eyeing up maybe a 4-2 split here. MNM will be thirsting to try and break this deadlock before it continues as deep as it might into this game.
Important round for MNM here, but also for G2. They want to be locking this off with a 3-3, whereas MNM looking to put that distance between themselves and the opposing team. So far, again, they've been really good at capitalizing on the rotations that were being made by G2, able to shut them down as they went, and, coming back from disadvantageous positions as well. So, managed to give a little bit more of that. Put this into a 4-2 split. Knave's opening up. There's a player near the house stairs. It's Doki rotating back up towards the top. Doesn't want to stick around on that side of the map too much. And as Geisha is being opened up, it's going to be putting some pressure down onto Benja, who hasn't had the best game. 1-on-5 so far.
Now, as we said, to sort of compare this Benja to the Benja that did those huge deep runs for this team, he was a phenom. He was untouchable. He's unfortunately not quite had that same effect, but as anyone does, when you go from sort of being one of the best in the world to being still very good, but good amongst a good team, it can eat at you because you know what you're capable of when the sort of cards are falling together. And here it's fighting at them even more. They found themselves only one attack last time round. G2 were playing on this map against Wolves' 4 solid defense. It was a 3 apiece half from their defenses. So if they end up with worse than that, having to go up against MNM's defenses, this could be a quick second half.
Could turn into a 7-2 kind of victory that Fabian expected, just not for the team he was rooting for.
Yeah, MNM have already done better than Fabian's predictions.
Yeah, exactly. So, who's he to tell them they cannot do more than that? as they find that very first into Benja just a little bit ago. Solo to take a small amount of damage, but as Uno drops now as well, there's a good opportunity for MNM to start snowballing through the site, because now rotations will start coming through from G2, and we've seen MNM be very capable of shutting those down as they happen, but Elamar with a huge pick onto Nave.
Users takes a lot of damage as well. They're trying to just strong arm themselves into the site and wanted to move over the vertical. Solotov does get the swing onto Alamar, but with those two players still above, they have some good control. Oh, what a swing onto the first. Virtue gets the lockdown, and again, Virtue left in this do or die situation. The plant is going down. The player under the hatch will give the calls on where they are, so they're not going to take the drop. They have to instead try and find a new angle for this 2 versus 1. Play with the time that they have available to them. Drop over the back onto Barbecue will make a lot of noise as the player just behind pops her head up. I don't know if Virtue saw it. Apparently not. We had the guidance of outlines, and MNM have the guidance of a 2-round buffer here. 4-2 on their attacking half.
It's a dramatic half for G2, the way that they've been losing these picks. Every single time players are rotating, MNM was there to pick it up. And you have to give commendations to MNM for the way they played out. Just being in the right position at the right time for 99% of those engagements there. As they now head over towards the defense as the site swap happens, Kitchen and Barbecue is going to be that first site. We're not going to see the bedroom and bathroom to come up. Again, still questionable that round, but it's only 1 round in 6. And MNM getting themselves ready. G2 haven't called a timeout yet, but the way things have been going, which means that this might still be en route for the prognosis they want it for, at least 2 rounds on the defense, and we have a good opportunity later. But you mentioned it before, only a single attack won in their game against Wolves, so that doesn't really show too much strength.
10 seconds to insertion.
In the history of their sort of head-to-heads versus MNM as well, which, will include a couple of roster changes the further back that you go. Sort of individual players swapped out, but these two teams have hit heads for a long time, and as they said, they haven't been able to technically beat them on an org versus org level, I think, until about, EUL last year. Stage 2 was the last time I can see a quick reference. So it's something that MNM have in the backs of their minds, but the attack was never truly the strongest thing. It was often quite balanced. There was, 7-0s from the side of G2, where all of that was built into defense. They had better lead-ins on their defense against MNM. The problem that MNM had generally was actually attacking against G2's holds here. 4-2 does them quite a good bit of boon on a map that does work well with the defense, on a map that we saw G2 struggle in their attacks. They brought in Uno specifically for the late round execute calls, for those late sort of moments, 30, 40 seconds left to say, right, I'm an experienced voice, this is what we do, lads. Has it been something that's been more esteemed and sharpened over the past couple of play days?
Well, the thing is, some players it seem to be working out really well for G2, and in others they completely got countered. And so far this game seemed to have been one of those where no matter what rotation they make, there's an MNM player always ready. Uno finds the first kill to Tyrant. It's a great start for G2 on that first attacking round. They need to strike back instantly. They cannot wait a round or two before they find their first. As at that moment, too much has already gone MNM's way. Nay, fully flashed 2-3 times, maybe even.
Yeah,
still not really receiving any pressure though.
Stuck underneath, they're trying to break and sort of bite their way in. They've got that early body. The Blackbeard's back onto karaoke window, but Usus gets rid of Virtue on the back end. There's not a single bit of control. G2 are doing that method of attacking where you sort of probe, you poke and try and find a weak spot in the defense, but nothing's being handed. MNM are sort of keeping them guessing and going all the way around. The first grenade popping around the corner to get them a bit of space. The second right down to the bottom of the stairs. They try and swing on the fight, but they cannot get that engagement. Nafe, again, still having a stormer of a game. Izdoki is stuck. Clearing out Shrine, Alamau underneath. 3 remaining G2 players have 50 seconds to try and get themselves a little bit closer together.
Alamau took some damage just a second ago as well, and Izdoki now gets removed. Uno forced to rappel into the balcony to see if he can take Geisha under control, but there's 2 players out there. He has a face shield. Will help him out just a little bit, but that's going to be removed instantly afterwards. Right through, 2 bullets into the head, and Alamau to be removed shortly after as well. MNM really dominating G2 so far, even though, those 2 rounds are still on the board. That round, nowhere to be seen. They didn't even get close to sight.
It was one of the things that was cited at the sort of beginning of the stretch and the stints. It was that MNM have the capability of being one of the best teams in the world. They have a lot of strengths, and when they're on their game, they are phenomenal. They really bring themselves together. They have some great takes and holds. And yeah, there's memes about them maybe throwing when they're 5 versus 1s, 4 versus 1s, but they've learned, they've improved, and this is the sort of statement of that. They're so unified in their motions and their coordinations. Everything seems to have a really good element of control about it, and it helps, obviously, to have a couple of players popping off massively, but at the same time, it's because of the way that they're sort of manipulating the space. G2 obviously taking their time out here. They do not want this to get into OT, because that's when things get more deadly, but they definitely don't want to have to try and fight back against all of the odds.
That's it. Like, it's not over once MNM hits 6, but the pressure is going to be a lot at that point. And that is something they need to prevent. They just need to get some rounds in a row right now. It's okay, you still have that 1 round buffer. But they needed 6 rounds to confirm themselves. So far, they only have 2. And time slowly ticking down. Must MNM just continue cruising on. Again, they found like answers to whatever G2's been tossing at them, and even though at times G2 looked quite individual in their approach, I think the attack was a good example of that. Everybody was basically picked up in separate parts of the map, and no one was there to find a reply to any of those players from G2.
5 seconds left.
I believe that's something the desk mentioned, that like, they cannot just rely on individual plays. They need to work together as a team. They need to play for the same objective together.
What was the steady voice in that call and that timeout there? Is it going to be this? Maybe the double up drive through. Benja wants to see if they can try and put the pressure here onto the black stairs. They've got Doki for a bit of this cross support as well. The 2 big gunners being droned ahead, getting some motion here. Quick breaks. Vanilla doing their best to impact it and slowing down. There is a lot of sharpness, a lot of pace here in this initial approach from G2. 30 seconds in, and they're already opening up walls close towards the site, and most importantly, getting their bodies closer and closer as well. Nath under a big bout of pressure. He needs to make sure that if he's holding onto these stairs, that, you know, he's sort of safe from an errant swing round. But again, look at this. G2's much more sort of driven idea as a team.
A minute has passed, and Users is the first to fall. Great first take coming down from Alamau, and now they need to try respond with this. They need to try and utilize this to their fullest capabilities here. See some rotations coming around from the G2 players as well. Benja hovering down below is getting some pings with drones. So far, things seem to be working together a little bit better. Doki finds Tyrant with a grenade. Benja is still in the process of picking one up as Nath is looking to take the fight towards Doki. Instead, it's going to be Nath that, doesn't escape actually. Gets picked up by Doki. So a 5-on-2, a good round for G2 so far.
Virtue suffers a big bit of damage. Doki's looking for the next grenade kill from underneath, and there's the ping on the player. Downs Nello. They might not know, but they did have ping, so you assume they've got some sense of confirmation there, leaving just Solotov in a 1 versus 5. The Ossa is in. Solotov is out. And well, what a response from attack timeout. 5-3. They make sure the gap doesn't get any wider. Can they try and keep this sense of unity?
That's it. They work really well together in that round, you have to say. And now he's getting that first pick instantly. You see verticality. So other people droning for each other, you know, like it should be. Pings coming through to get those grenades in the right places. And suddenly, it's just a completely different team. We see a very dominating round from G2 to come through. But they need to do that 3 times more if they want to get themselves in those playoffs. Alamau with the Amaru. Could, of course, still pick off. But for now, sticking it. Uno is the one that is carrying the diffuser, though. So we're not going to see, like, any quick plant attempt maybe happening. We could see Alamau potentially, you know, insert himself quickly into the building to clear out a part of it.
10 seconds to go.
Maybe to exert himself afterwards. But it seems like it is going to stick.
I mean,
never mind. Okay, last second, I say it, and it happens.
Yep. I kind of want this to turn into a little bit more of a brawl. I don't say as you know, is a fan who actually has, ironically, look to my right, I have both a G2 jersey and an MNM jersey that were gifts from the orgs. You know, you want both teams to succeed here, but you also want a fight because this is such a potentially important match, right? This is a match where you want the best. Tyrant gets Alamau. They'll lose that Lion. There's the follow-up fight of Solotov getting Doki, even amongst the calls. And, you know, from that first huge impact here from G2, we move on to the next site, the next map, and it seems that that sort of step up in pace, without it needing to be a big conversation from the side of MNM, has been met by more pace. Tyrant gets Uno. There's one more on the door. And they say, you want to do a flawless? We are still in the opening minute of this round.
G2 not allowed to enter the building whatsoever. Virch is going to be opening the door, gives away his position, drops down. It's going to be heard by those players out there. Called out as well, especially when he started opening up. And as Virtue is the last one standing, he's going to be waiting out. There's 100 seconds left on the clock. So a quick restart is just Virtue trying to stall time here. I mean, he knows this is 99% of the time going to be unwinnable.
It's also, obviously, as you said, Uno's just getting the rehost in. And the longer Virtue's alive, the less likely will have to be to stop the game. There's 5 players ahead of him. There's a minute 10. They know exactly where he is. Any other approach will make a lot of noise. Solotov's holding a sharp angle. And giving the Australian any sort of freebies here, though. Virtue, as I said a few rounds ago, you met this MNM half a year ago, you might have been able to pull off the 1 versus 5 because they had a horrible habit with them. This time they've definitely learned a lesson. The C4 gets most of Virtue. 45
There was an opportunity of clutching it. It's just almost gone down the drain by that Nitro.
Yeah.
That 1 HP. He's just going to be holding off. He's just looking to see if he can get any kills on MNM players walking out. Second impact back on where the C4 came from. But this is just time to talk for the team. Because for those of you that don't know, if you have a technical rehost, which won't be the case, Uno has returned, you're not allowed to actually talk. So they could talk whilst they were waiting for Uno to come back. As soon as he joins the server, they end the round. They go on to the next. The round that will be deciding which these two teams might go through, because, well, if MNM win this, game's over. They are the ones that are securing themselves top 3. If G2 win this one, well, then they have 2 more to fight for to get themselves in that similar position.
It is spicy. At this point for G2, they only have these opportunities ahead of them. They just need 3. They just need overtime. They can lose in overtime. At that point, it doesn't matter. They will still find themselves locked in 3rd place and save themselves having to do the open here. MNM, I mean, they are battling at this point. They came in fully with the knowledge of what they needed to do, what had to sort of be pieced together for them. Since then, have just stepped up and stepped in. Closer and closer. 1 round separates them from, well, having to go through a lot more of a fight.
That's a fight against very hungry teams. Like, teams that are trying to prove themselves, players that are trying to prove themselves. So you really have to get up to the best of your capabilities to get through the open qualifiers as well. It's not like it's any easier. If anything, it might be harder for a well-established team because it's a lot of teams you're coming up against that you just don't have any information on. It's a nightmare for a lot of these teams.
It's also a sort of bit of a turnaround as well because, you know, last time that these two teams met was in the Deciders, where G2 pushed them down to the lower brackets. They had to win their game versus Wild, which they did 2-1, to get themselves to Copenhagen. G2 had already sort of booked their flights here, so MNM is sort of saying, look, you knocked us down in a tricky position last time. We're giving you a worse return favor here. We're giving you so much more work to do to get up. And still, as we said, even if they win this, whichever team gets ahead, it's not set in stone they'll be there. You could always still have a change of fates, and Uno's going to make sure that they still have a bit of fate in their favor. Solito off first.
The previous one round started off as well, you know, just picking up that very first kill, and then the rest of G2 being able to find. That's a rappel rope, yeah. That's Nate just patiently waiting for it to come back up, but also realizing it might not be for a while. So he's just going to be digging in close on the corner. Now he knows that it's actually that rappel rope that went back up slightly. You know, still trying to take a fight onto Nave.
And just sort of tacking some shots either side of the box, but it's very well-made hard cases. That'll need some of the support here to come through from Benja. Breaks across the back of drum. Doki gets into a very heated engagement, but Users doesn't have a single bite on him to show for it.
As again, Users are looking to go for an aggressive swing. Virtue finds a kill. Users turns around but gets himself found as well. And this is a good opportunity for G2 to find that response, as it's only up to Nave in a 1v3 situation as Virtue shuts him out. A huge round from Virtue is keeping G2 alive in this game. 2 more to find if they want to qualify themselves for playoffs. So they're getting closer, but they cannot afford a single slip-up anymore, because then MNM is going to be taking the game.
That is how that point works. Timeout. MNM call a timeout. They want to make sure that they can keep their heads on it. They don't want to give G2 a single breath of getting themselves anywhere closer towards the end of this game. They have played this phenomenally so far. It's been a very good balanced hand, a very good strike through from MNM. It's also time for G2 to talk to as well. Obviously, they can sort of use this moment to talk about where things went well. I mean, over the past, 4 rounds, we've had 2 timeouts and 2 flawlesses. I guess it shows the weight of it all.
So that's it. No more tactical timeouts now. The thing is, G2 also had time to talk during that 45-second gap. It's not like it's just MNM that has the opportunity to discuss.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
Of course, we will not know, what has been said by these coaches, by the teams themselves, but we'll see what the outcome will be. Just a couple minutes. Barbecue. It's going to be the site where MNM hope to close off this game, where they hope to find themselves in the playoffs. There's G2 looking again to find that early opener and capitalize on the back of that.
Push from the top. And they get this one final push. G2 have improved their pace quite a lot over the past couple of rounds. One time it worked very, very well. One time it worked the opposite. And that time, well, it sort of had a good bite. They got the opening 2 bodies, and the leading onto the third was just winning that engagement where things might have started to piece away from them. It's this sort of return to drive, this return of respect of what Skyscraper is, which is a very big play space. He's just going to soft off the back end and make sure they have a little bit more to work with, as there is a very close Solace here. Of course, the house stairs. Bit of gadget juggling. Sometimes it happens. They start to try and force that player to make a decision. The Solace has made one, and it's Tyrant. Oh, with the pull on the player on their drone and cameras, they're going to hope that they go unchecked. They're pretty sure that they were.
Yeah, just trying to reposition yourself slightly. Still staying near to take the fight. Might be because he realizes he, might be just a buck alone. Otherwise, there would be someone to follow up on it. Virtue actually has a spot. He has an idea on where the Solace is going to be at. Trying to go for a bit of a bait, but it's going to be Nave that takes on Benja. Tyrant to just come around the corner, finds Doki as well. And MNM in a really good position right now to close out the game and find themselves in playoffs.
Tyrant, a real good dive there. Obviously, we saw them soft off the door that they expected the runaway to come through here, and they couldn't get the catch on the player on the back end of Shrine. Uno, a rocky time to run out of the right to that fight. Gets the call, gets the flash round. They have to try and make sure that the next pull on a player is one that is clean, but without any of the control on the vertical, without him out going for the dive across the top. It's so rocky without having somebody else to just offer you support, so they have to wait. Here, Virtue, getting everything reloaded. There's 3 bodies on the second story. If they can maybe try and isolate one of these engagements, they drop the camera, they get the drop on the player, but will unfortunately find themselves falling through as well. A panicked second there, as Virtue did not want to get caught out. A good first take, albeit a little bit of a panicked one. 2 more, and they've suddenly got themselves an advantage.
Virtue got himself up in the spot he was in before he fell down. Needs to find a bit more. They think there's someone on the other side of gold. That's why the ping came in. So I think it's up to Virtue now to try and see if there's any verticality they can go for here, as there is a trade on either side. A 2-on-2 will eventually be the case. And it's a team kill. Yeah, indeed, that comes true. Virtue now knows there's no one where Alamau eventually pinged out the player to be. And with 30 seconds left on the clock, is G2 still needing to approach the site? Verticalities being made. Some shots are being exchanged. Virtue is trying to find Nello, but he's not quite connecting.
A 2 versus 2 with 20 seconds out of a little bit of a mistake. I'm sure they'll be kicking themselves for if this goes a little bit wrong. But here, G2, you have been handed a chance and a lifeline. Uno takes the drop. He's going to miss all the shots onto the goo mine, but go for the plant anyway. 5 seconds on the cover. They've got the vertical cover on one side. Virtue's watching the right way, but Nello gets it from the back at MNM. Ah, your final team confirmed for deciders. Even with a little bit of a slip up, they make sure that they are a step closer towards getting themselves back-to-back majors and back in Atlanta.
It's going to be really disappointing for G2. A long road ahead of them as they want to try and find a 3rd spot as well to eventually come through. Well played by MNM. They did this absolutely by the books. They were always ready for whatever G2 was throwing at them and find themselves with a 7-4 victory. And with that, in that final spot for playoffs.
Well, I am very excited to see what Fabian has to say on the desk, so let's throw it to a break and waste no more time.
I would say my favorite competitive moments in R6 have all been related to or around LAN events. The first LAN that I went to as a player is probably my favorite. I think it was the 2019 Winter UK Prem LAN. For me, I was brand new to competitive, and being able to make a LAN in our first season was a great experience for me. Whether it's been me going to LAN events as a spectator or as a player, they've definitely always been the highlight of the season or year for me.
Well, it would have to be winning the Berlin Major a year ago, because that was after like a long period of not winning like tournament and stuff. So I was kind of teetering on it, thinking like, oh, am I still good enough and all that kind of stuff. And then we won that match against FaZe also, is because it was just such a nail biter, I guess. Then obviously the fans, it was just crazy. Like I think we all said after that it felt like the crowd was like a 6th player to us. That's definitely my favorite moment.
My favorite memory is definitely the last Invitational we played. I think the turning point was the match against FaZe. We were losing pretty hard, and if we lost that, we'll basically be out of the tournament. But we had a good timeout from our coach, Fabian, telling us we're playing like really bad, and it not only made me mad at myself, but it made me mad at him, because like how like he's saying this stuff, like everything just fired me up, and I just wanted to go out there and destroy the enemy team after that.
My best memory in Siege has to be the victory we got in the Young Company Major. The feeling to finally win something, like something big, right, was amazing. Especially like doing it with the teammate I was playing with for 3 years. Like it means a lot for us and for me, obviously. And I'm really happy to have done something that not a lot of people did in this game.
For me, my favorite moment is qualifying for Copenhagen Major when we was playing Wild at the UL playoffs, and it was game for a slot on Copenhagen. But I remember that we were getting on the Chalet, and basically Chalet is not our greatest map, but we tried so hard, and the game was absolutely emotional. Everybody was so emotional, everybody was so screaming. That should be my favorite moment from the recent ones.
So I think one of my favorite moments in Siege actually was when I was still in tier 3, basically an on, and I randomly got a message one day from Fabian, one of the greatest players of all time, a legend, and he asked me if I would be interested in a project that he would make, and I ended up joining that project. I mean, I own him a lot. He basically taught me how to play Siege correctly, so that's the reason I'm here. So just thank you for giving me a chance.
Well, welcome back to Blast R6 EUL stage 2, the last day of the groups. I can see Fresh in the corner of my eye, just glancing to the left of him. I'm Ian, this is Fresh, that is Fabian. G2 were just defeated, convincingly, you could argue, by MNM Gaming. And we did go into that map there, into that game, Fab, and I said to you, what can MNM do to win this game? And you said, there's nothing they can do.
I think you must have misheard me. I said that there's anything that they can do because they played as a team for the first time this stage, really, that we have seen them do so. And I'm impressed by the way that they did it. I do also think that G2 were suffering from some massive nerves because I'm not used to seeing Benjamonster playing like the way that he did today. And surprising the way that they just turn out to the map because they lost all of these manpower advantages that they had. And we almost saw them lose a 5-on-2. That's what MNM does. Not G2 too, but MNM much more. Yeah. And it was surprising.
Well, I'm looking forward to picking it apart in further detail with both of you. But first, let's talk to MNM's analyst. We've got Eden ready for a bit of a conversation. Eden, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
You make the playoffs. Congratulations. Did you expect it to go as well as it just did against G2?
Hello everyone. No, honestly, we knew that Orban and Norma pool was not the greatest against G2, but we're competitors, so we give everything, whatever the stakes. So we are ready, fired up to win against them, and it worked.
It did work, that's for sure. And, you know, it felt like you were playing a little bit more of a slower play style, a bit more together. There's been, you know, a little bit of feedback in some of the previous games that you've had that there's been maybe a little bit too much of a focus on individual play, maybe 1v1 plays recently. Is that something that you've picked up on?
Yeah, as you said, and as everyone have seen on the broadcast, yeah, we were missing the team play, especially in the attacks. Been something for a long time, but it was even harder lately. So yeah, last 2 weeks, we really focused on getting our head back correctly on the game, doing things step by step, having correct shot calls, correct decision at the right moments. It started to show the results.
How much equity and how excited are the players about the fact that they did just beat the world champions? Of course, they're not in the sort of form that we expect them to be, but it's always still a massive W when you take down G2.
Yeah, and they, before being world champion, we are friends with them, so it's always a pleasure to meet them on the server. Yeah, we were excited. That's one of the few teams we don't like to lose against. Sorry, and yeah, we are really happy and really excited for tomorrow game also.
Yeah, I mean, looking ahead to tomorrow, how will you prepare this evening and then tomorrow morning before you get right back into action in a best of 3?
Yeah, we face Wild, I think, tomorrow. So we're gonna make the plan today. Wake up not too late and have a bit of VOD, obviously. Finish our plan and then jump into the game.
Yeah, I think that's as it stands. There might be a couple of variables that need to play out before we know exactly who you'll be playing up against. But if it is Wild, they're very good. Do you think you'd be able to take them down?
Well, last stage we've beaten them 2-0. So I think we can do the same again. So yeah, we're going to see. We're going to wait a bit more for the games to finish. But if it's Wild, I'll be very happy to face them.
All right, Eden, thank you very much. And congratulations to you and the rest of your team. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Cheers. Thanks. All right. Well, it is always huge, even though G2 aren't in the sort of form we expect them to be in. If you can take them out and do the job that MNM just did, you're going to be proud of yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I think that when you've had your issues kind of so publicly addressed. You know, we've come on here, we've publicly addressed their issues. MNM know about their issues. To see them improve on those issues, you know, it was only 6 days ago we were saying, these guys have got all these blatant issues that they need to work through. Finally, you know, it looked like they did. There were still a few moments on Skyscraper, don't get me wrong. It was far from the perfect game, but it was enough to beat a G2 who was very poor. I think had G2 have been their full selves today, we was in for a much, much, much closer game, but MNM capitalized and beat what was in front of them and improved their issues. So for them, that's job done. They're into the best of threes. And I think, you know, you can play as bad as you want during the league stage. As long as you get into the best of threes, that's all that's going to matter for you.
It's all that does matter. And I mean, if you look at it, we were looking at when did MNM beat G2 last? Both me and Fresh were in that team. He was as an analyst and I was as a player. So that's a long time ago. Or at least that's the last time we saw that we remember them beating them. So that's back in 2020, 3 years ago. So that's quite a while. But they looked a lot better. I'm happy for them. But now it's about repeating that. Maybe it could be that it's a little bit of a grudge against G2 that we don't want to lose against these guys because we know them. I don't know what it was that activated for them today, but keep that up and we'll definitely see them.
That was part of the MNM that we've wanted to see these past couple of weeks.
Well, you mentioned grudge there. And another team that has a massive grudge is Wolves, who want to take down the monkey on their back. They've never beaten the BDS. And the stakes are so high regardless. You do not want to miss it after the break.